Cup finals in Germany and Spain to get to. Let's start. Los Che winning their first silverware in Spain since 2008, the 8th time they've won the Copa del Rey title. Barcelona will have to wait for number 31. Ali, we have to start with the vanquished, don't we? Not many people saw this coming. Certainly the bookmakers. Barcelona were heavy favourites. Did they deserve to lose this?
They did, and it's based upon the first half and the lack of intensity with which this team played. Not only intensity running with the ball or running without the ball, it's just the movement overall of the team was so very slow and so very predictable. And so Lionel Messi starts sort of as a false nine. Well, he's not getting the ball there. He starts dropping back into positions where he can get touches on the ball because it's either Messi creating something or Messi shooting the ball or Messi taking a chance, or it's not happening for Barcelona. Certainly that was the case today, as it has been for most of the season, to be quite honest with you. Defensively, Barcelona, whenever they lost the ball, it felt like Valencia was going to score every time. And had Valencia been more effective and more efficient in their ability to counterattack, this game would not have been as close as it was. In the second half, Barcelona played with a different intensity, a different level of energy, perhaps desperation. That made the game closer. Valencia got a little scared, got a little nervous. They took a step back, and that allowed Barcelona to, again, regain possession of the ball in advanced areas and create from there. But overall, I find that at Barcelona, again, it looked a lot today, the first half, like what we saw against Liverpool. It was very similar in terms of the lack of energy and their inability to do something meaningful with the ball once they had it in the final third.
It was an upset. It was a shock, Shaka. But does it matter in the big picture for Barcelona that they lost this final?
Well, no. I think Barcelona kind of hang their hats and their reputation on what happens in the league and the Champions League. So this, again, maybe icing on the cake, which, you know, at this stage you could take it or leave it. But the bigger point to this performance, as it were, if you watch 90 minutes of this game, is that Barcelona, without Lionel Messi, are a very average team. Yeah. And I mean, concerningly average. Awful at the back. And in fairness to Valencia, they got numbers behind the ball. They knew where the threat was, and they knew exactly how frail Barcelona were on the counter-attack. And they fully deserved the win tonight.
Gab Marcotti is also with us. Gab, what was your assessment of events in Seville? Did you see this coming?
Yeah, I mean, especially once you saw the setup. And you know what? It's 2 years of Ernesto Valverde. And you know what? You can point out, oh, look, he won the double last year. He won the league again this season. But he keeps getting out-coached and out-thought in big games. And I appreciate he has an incomplete squad, which means that if Luis Suarez is out, then there's no center forward off the bench who's then buy one for him or whatever. But still, you knew what was coming. I really thought Marcelino actually completely blitzed them in those first 45 minutes. I thought they could have even scored more. So in the second half, Barcelona came to life a little bit, but I think a little bit was also Valencia trying to hit on the break, maybe getting a little bit uncomfortable, perhaps. But even at 2-1, at the end, Barcelona still had two really good chances on the counter, which they didn't take. And I think this is a case, just doesn't happen against Liverpool, happen against here. He runs into a guy who out-coaches him and outthinks him tactically on the night. And I think this is the stuff that should give you cause to concern.
Yeah, it's inevitable, isn't it? The questions will be pointed towards Ernesto Valverde. Outcoached in the games that matter, is that fair?
I think it is fair. If you consider that the games that matter are specifically Champions League last year and specifically Champions League this year, and then you refer this as an example as well. I've been saying that I would move on from Valverde before this game. And regardless of what the score would have been here and the result would have been here, my opinion is very simple. There's been 2 opportunities for Valverde to truly change the way the team plays in moments in which the team needs an adjustment, and he has failed to do so. And that's the responsibility of a coach. So when it happens 2 years in a row, when you have the sort of collapses that he's had, and they've had as a group against Roma and against Liverpool, in the end, it reflects very poorly on the players, but it also reflects incredibly poorly on the coach as well.
But then when Lionel Messi comes out and says that he thinks that Valverde is the right coach, certainly for the foreseeable future, if you're sitting in the Barcelona boardroom, you have to take that.
What else is he going to say, Shaq?
I agree. But at the same time, given the pressure that Valverde has been under over the last week, and your star player comes out and defends him as he does, I expected more from this Barcelona team. I really did. And I understand Gab's point that, yes, you could see this coming, but then at the same time, Lionel Messi picks a ball up in midfield and runs the length of the field and scores. How many times have we seen that as well? And it feels as though when you watch Barcelona, that's what you're hanging on. You're hanging on magic from Lionel Messi. Yeah. And you've got to ask for more from your coach than just to say, you've got the best player in the world, let him do it. What's Valverde giving you otherwise?
Gab?
Well, it's funny. I was listening to what you were saying, Shaka, and I agree with your conclusion at the end. It seemed to me like you were going in a different direction when you were talking about Messi coming out and backing Valverde. Messi's going to do that because, if he sort of hums and haws and says, well, let's see what happens at the end of the season or whatever, then people are going to accuse him of not backing his manager. The reality, I think, is if you're Barcelona, you can't let Messi pick the manager because we saw what happened when in the Tata Martino debacle a couple years ago. You need to find somebody with the right personality that can relate to Messi, that can manage Messi, and say, listen, you're going to carry us when we need you, but we're going to have a framework around you that you don't have to do what Ali described earlier, where he needs to shoot on goal, but then he also needs to be back in midfield to create because nobody else will do that. You need to have the courage at boardroom level to realize that some of these players need to be moved on. Some of these players who you brought in, who you thought were going to be really good, and all of a sudden Nelson Semedo was going to be the second coming, and then you realize that the guy has serious trouble defending. You need a little bit of humility there, and you need to make some strong decisions this summer. And the one thing that would worry me, obviously Frankie de Jong's in the way, it seems that we're getting a lot of eye candy. We're getting de Jong, we're getting Griezmann, we're getting sort of 2-3 superstars, whereas I think there's a lot of surgery to be done on the everyday role players in this team as well.
Gab, bottom line, when the new La Liga season kicks off at the end of August, whenever it is Ernesto Valverde still there on the touchline?
Bartomeu came out after the game tonight and said, well, he has a contract and tonight's defeat wasn't his fault. Look, Bartomeu ends up, swaying it with the wind. I'd be really surprised. I think even Barcelona, if they were going to make a change, they're not going to make it based on this game. They would have made the change before that. I think grudgingly, they think that, they can re-energize this team by spending some money this summer. And I think Bartomeu stays. I think Bartomeu, Freudian lapse there. I think Valverde stays.
Yeah, Bartomeu's definitely staying. Another manager who's very much under the spotlight, Niko Kovac, despite winning his domestic title winners in Germany. And that's just in the Bundesliga era that started in 1963. Nobody else in German history has managed it more than once. So pretty good end to the first season in charge for Niko Kovac. Watching this final, Gab, this could easily have gone in a different direction, though.
It certainly could have, especially in that first half. Leipzig creating tons of problems for Bayern. I thought this was a game that really exposed some of Bayern's weaknesses. Muller's pace on the counter. Thiago, I thought they dealt with him well. Leipzig gambled. They pressed high up the pitch. But whatever ups and downs Bayern had this season, the cardinal rule is they seem to stay calm under pressure. They find a way to pass out of the press. They take the lead. All of a sudden that rattles the opposition, and then they go out there and they manage the game. But certainly on balance, this was a lot closer than the scoreline suggests.
And it wraps up a season that seemed to be going horribly off the rails. In December, they were in 5th place, looking totally out of it. They end up as double winners. Of course, the Champions League remains the big blip on their radar.
Yes, and some turmoil early on in the season, and some questions, and I think rightfully so, of Niko Kovac. And then you also had to ask the question of, you know, this team is getting older, and we didn't do anything to make this team get any younger. And so when Ribéry is injured, or Robben is injured, now you're looking in some different places to try to get that creativity and that explosive movement and dynamic movement in the final third. You're saying, well, where is the talent coming from? Well, you didn't do anything to address it. But through it all, they just kind of got result after result after result. It helped that Borussia Dortmund came back to them. I think that gave Bayern Munich confidence to then get on a run. And when it came time to have a big matchup, and it was that game against Borussia Dortmund at home, Bayern Munich, they puffed their chest out and said, you know what? You got to beat us. Good luck. You're not going to do it here. And I think right then and there, they established themselves as champions and continue to move forward in what should be considered a successful season.
Were you impressed watching them, Shaka? Because RB Leipzig are clearly no mugs, are they?
I was impressed once they got the opening goal. I thought Leipzig were the better of the two teams up until Robert Lewandowski somehow finds the back of the net, doing it only as he can do it, it seems. And after that, it was Bayern Munich in cruise control, which we've come to see. And that's the thing with this Bayern team. They're not... or they hadn't been as dominant as you would think, or maybe you expect when you talk about Bayern Munich and you're talking about a team that's just won the double. But I thought Leipzig showed their lack of experience, or maybe it was Bayern just being better once they got the goal. And similarly in league, and Ali mentioned it, this league was Dortmund's to lose, and somehow they managed to do that. And Bayern keep their nerve when others around them couldn't. And that's been the difference between them and everybody else. And not that they've been that much greater than everybody else.
Gab, end of an era for Bayern with the 3 R's on their way. Robben, Ribéry, Rafinha as well. None of them really played much.
It's a smaller R there.
None of them really played much of a part this year. But you sense it's a big summer coming up for the Bavarians.
It is, and they're already moving on that. They're certainly targeting Timo Werner. The big positive with him is he can back up Lewandowski and obviously do a job for you out wide. Obviously, they extended Gnabry's contract. They're very high on him. They're being strongly linked in the media with a move for Leroy Sané as well. He's going to cost an absolute bundle, but they feel that if he comes in, he's a game changer. You've got Corentin Tolisso coming back from injury in midfield. Leon Goretzka has another season under his belt. And then at the back, you brought in 2 guys who you hope can help you in Pavard and Hernandez. Wouldn't necessarily have been my choices in terms of addressing the needs that they have. But I think they feel that, they'll be stronger in every department. Now all they need to do is maybe lose another couple big salaries in the form of James Rodriguez, possibly Boateng, and they're there.
And the elephant in the room, Gab, Niko Kovac. Has he done enough? Has he displayed his credentials? Is he going to stay?
See, that's the question, right? We think of Bayern as this very rational club. It shouldn't depend on 90 minutes of football whether he stays or goes, especially when they were outplayed by Leipzig for long stretches. This is just a hunch. I don't know what they're going to do, but for me, the fact that there was still a question mark hanging over him going into this game, and that Bayern aren't the kind of club where everything's going to hinge on 90 minutes, that suggests to me that maybe he won't be back.
Will be fascinating to follow that. We will salute the end of the Robbery era. Ian Robben and Frank Ribéry. This is the numbers they put up. Ribéry was there for 12
What about
years.
Rafinha?
Robben, there's only room for 2 R's on this screen. The 3rd R will have to wait. Of course, perhaps the peak.
Hey, you brought it up.
The peak of Robbery was winning the Champions League back in 2013 at Wembley. Well, it's the final day of Serie A tomorrow. The big remaining storylines. Which teams will join Juventus and Napoli in the Champions League? Before we look ahead to Sunday's games, though, let's...
So much so that they win without playing their very best. In fact, heavily criticized at times. Massimiliano Allegri will no longer be with the club. And yet, they win easily. And so a lot of the teams that are below Juventus, it's not just below Juventus. It just feels like the distance is not getting any shorter. You bring in Cristiano Ronaldo to make a difference not only in the league, but certainly in Champions League. That doesn't quite happen. So as criticized as they were, Juventus still far and away ahead of everybody else.
But Gab, the drama is still to come, perhaps. Is there going to be a final twist in the tail, the race for those Champions League spots? Set the scene for us. Atalanta and the 2 Milan giants chasing those last 2 spots. How do you expect it all to unfold?
Well, if only I knew, Adrian. I mean, anything can pretty much happen. Atalanta and Inter. Atalanta, by the way, for me, definitely the story of the season in Serie A. They're away to Sassuolo. Sorry, they're home to Sassuolo, which is technically away to Sassuolo because that's where they play their home games while their stadium's renovated. Inter, of course, are playing at home against Empoli. Empoli, who are hanging on by their fingernails to stay in Serie A, and they're exactly the kind of small team but footballing team that can often give Inter fit. So I wouldn't take anything for granted from those two. Atalanta, of course, also without Hateboer. So the question is, how will Milan do? Milan, very simple. They need the 3 points. Spal's a tough opponent, but they need to win and hope that somebody screws up elsewhere. One of those two teams, my guess, and I can't tell you which one, but my guess is one of those two, Atalanta and Inter, do not win, and Milan sneak in.
Interesting. All the games kicking off at the same time, Shaq Garrett. If you can only watch one of those games, which one are you going to watch?
Well, he's a romantic. I found out he's a romantic.
I'm watching Atalanta Sassuolo.
Oh, yeah?
I would love to see their season and their incredible season be rewarded with a Champions League booth. For all the storylines that are about Syria, I don't think they come much bigger than this. I'd love to see them do it, and I think they will. I think they go there, in inverted commas, to Sassuolo, get the 3 points, they qualify. As far as the other two concerned, I think both AC Milan and Inter continue to try to shoot themselves in the foot, and I don't see that being any different. I'm going to make a bold prediction and say that Inter lose, AC Milan draw, and it comes down to the head-to-head, which Inter just narrowly scraping.
Ooh. Which way are you going, Ali?
I've said it all along. It's Atalanta and Inter. And the reason for Atalanta is very simple. They're the best of the rest. When you consider all these other teams that are involved in this, they are the most consistent, best team to watch play, and best team in terms of results. Look, they deserve to be there. It doesn't always work out that the team that deserves to be there ends up there, but I do think that Atalanta will take that last step. And Inter, ugly as it may be, they'll hang on just enough. Crawling
over the line.
Very Inter-like, but they'll get
a point may be enough for them. But I mentioned all those games kicking off at the same time. Of course, AC Milan have to travel to Spal. Roma is still technically alive, just according to the mathematicians. I don't know what equations they would have to come up with to succeed. They play Parma, and we will recap all tomorrow's goings-on in Serie A, tomorrow's show. Stevie Nicol will be back, Paul will join us, and of course Gab will be on board as well. Our viral video of the day comes from the Dutch amateur leagues, where a goal was scored by a referee.
No, ref.
No. And he runs away like, it's not my fault. No, I didn't do anything. Come on, ref.
He did try and get out of the way. He kind of lifted a leg.
You can't know that.
The story is Mike Dean, the referee, celebrating. You saw him there.
Yeah, of course he made it about himself.
Emotionless creatures, those referees.
Gab, I know this has got a lot of attention in the UK. Do you have a problem with Dean celebrating?
No, I just have more of a general problem with Mike Dean in general. I think his stick is very thin. I think it's extraordinary that he stuck around as long as he has. I think he's setting himself up very nicely for his post-refereeing career when he can become a referee character, and more power to him. But I am very happy for Tranmere because this is a historic club, John Aldridge, all that, and great to see them climbing through the divisions again.
I think Peter Walton was a Newport County fan, so he didn't make the cut.
Oh,
yeah.
Poor Peter. Yeah. No, but to your question,
that felt genuine.
Well, I have no problem with Mike Dean celebrating as he did. I mean, obviously now the line has been drawn, and you have to be careful about his appointments, not just Tranmere, but any of the rival clubs. But
yeah,
I
think the schedule is
referees are allowed to support clubs as well.
They're humans, aren't they?
We know they have their favourites.
They're humans.
Are they? Can we have confirmation of that?
Have you seen Peter Walton? Does that look human to you?
Oh, see?
Congratulations to Tranmere Rovers. It's good to see them moving up. I wonder if we'll have any Tranmere-related questions on extra time. That's coming up next. What are the chances?
Not very high.
Slim.
Extra time. Here we go. And I think it may surprise you to learn that there are a lot of disgruntled Barcelona fans out there today.
Okay.
Oh.
They seem to have jammed up our inbox.
Well, they've come,
our
they've come to the right place.
Our in-tray is bursting with them. In fact, let's rip through a few of them before we get into it. Does Valverde know his personnel? Needs goals, takes out goal-scoring mid Rakitic, puts in B-team mid Elena. Coutinho doesn't play 90 all season, leaves him in to start cramping with 20 minutes to go. On we go. Instead of Arthur and Semedo, who would you have substituted, or do you think that was the right decision? And then, how can Valverde have the nerve to put Sergio Roberto as a right wing when he's the slowest guy on the pitch, and bench Malcolm, who's a decent right wing? How does that? He does that change second half, and game was much better from Barca's end. Are they not wasting Messi's last couple of seasons? That's kind of a summation of the disgruntlement out there. So have at it, Ali.
Well, that's a lot to unpack there.
Yes, it is.
Let's start with Coutinho.
Yeah.
It has to be incredibly frustrating for Barcelona fans to see what Coutinho has become as a player in Barcelona. Dribble, 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 get close to Messi, give him the ball 2 yards away from him. Dribble, 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 lose the ball, and then just walk back. Dribble, 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 straight out of bounds. That cannot be what you were looking for. And this was supposed to be a guy that was... He would be the one to relieve some pressure from Lionel Messi, because Coutinho, in theory, would be good enough to create space for himself, attract attention, and therefore free up Lionel Messi. It has not happened. And the time for Coutinho, and he doesn't help himself with the body language either. And that it's not a guy. If you're sitting in row set over there somewhere, and you're watching this guy play, and you already are not feeling all too comfortable about him, and then you see him lose the ball, and that he doesn't quite have the work ethic or the willingness to go and try to recover the ball that he just lost, that would drive anybody absolutely insane.
That sounds like a whole lot of dribble or drivel when it comes to Coutinho.
Yeah.
Take your pick.
No, I'm with that. It's been frustrating to see Coutinho be the player that he has been over the last 12 months. But in all honesty, outside of Lionel Messi, everybody else has struggled and have been huge disappointments. Listen, I know Luis Suarez is sitting on the bench, but I don't think that excuses Barcelona from looking this poor.
Gab is with us. Gab, do all these questions you file under what you brought up in the show? Questions about Valverde and his tactics?
I mean, look, there's legitimate questions about his absentees, right? Because he could say, well, if I play Dembele and Suarez, then we don't have this problem. Then Coutinho doesn't play, then we win, and then, nobody has a go at me. But the reality is, the reason you have one of the biggest jobs in coaching is that you can come up with other solutions. You can come up with other ways. Hindsight is always 20/20. Obviously, somebody like Malcolm would have made things happen sooner. At least he is a genuine winger. I think there's probably painful decisions that you could have made earlier with some veteran players. I know Rakitic can turn it on, but when Rakitic isn't in condition, and he wasn't necessarily the problem tonight, then there's no reason sticking with him just because he's Rakitic. We saw a bit of creativity when they moved to what looked like sort of this variation of a back three when they were chasing the game. The question is, why don't we see that more? Well, why doesn't that become a way of playing in certain situations when your options are limited? These are all questions that Valverde hasn't answered. And let's not forget, he's not here because, he's Johan Cruyff Mark II. He's here because supposedly he is the brilliant tactician who knows different systems and can motivate players and can adjust. But there's no adjustments at Barcelona. It really is ride Messi's coattails as long as we can.
More of a wide-angled lens type question on that subject coming from, I draw your attention to this name, Stevie Nichols' Shepherd's Pie has weighed in with the first meaty question. Wide-angle lens from the Pie. Which Spanish giant has allowed their squad to decay more, Barca or Real Madrid, and which will have the bigger overhaul this summer? Take your pick.
I think the obvious answer is Real Madrid, who lost... People don't know this, they should know this by now, 18 times in La Liga.
Yes.
18 times. kind of gives you an idea how far they dropped. Barcelona did win the league, so it's difficult to make a case that their squad has decayed further than Real Madrid. I think Real Madrid has a bigger rebuild job than Barcelona does.
Gab, one specifically for you from Nick. How do you think Sarri ball will possibly work out in Juventus, and can it lead them to Champions League glory?
Yeah, these Sarri rumors won't go away. I don't think we'll have anything concrete, obviously, until after the Europa League final, and a lot of dominoes have to fall for this to happen. It would be a tremendously courageous choice from Juventus, given their recent history, given Sarri's recent history. I think it would be really interesting, and people are already speculating about, what's going to happen. Where do you play Cristiano Ronaldo in Sarri's 4-3-3? Because it's pretty obvious that in his system, the wingers are asked to do a lot of coordinated movements, a lot of very specific jobs. You don't necessarily want him to do that. Is this when we see Cristiano operate purely as a center forward, for example? You need dynamic midfielders to make it work, as well as a deep-lying quarterback type. Maybe that guy can be Pjanic, possibly. But then you have the dynamism in players like Matuidi, like Emre Can, to do that. Or are they different types of players? To me, this Juve squad, while qualitatively better than a lot of the teams out there, really doesn't seem suited at all to Sarri ball, for lack of a better term. Yeah. And all I can think is that if they bring him in, this is going to be a transition season, and it's going to be a longer-term rebuilding project.
One thing is for certain. Yeah. Jorginho's going to play.
I was going to say,
100%.
I love the fact we're trying to figure out how Ronaldo would sit in.
No, Jorginho will play.
Two things are for certain. Jorginho will play, and according to reports out of Turin, it's going to be Pep and Sarri as joint managers at Juventus.
Shaq. Wow.
That's what I read.
You got sources.
Sure,
that's what I read.
Reports from Matteo Bonetti.
Yeah. I saw that.
Finally, Dro Laguna for Ali. Where were you yesterday to say what you normally say when the news about Lukaku to Inter broke?
Lukaku!
Better late than never.
Hey, I was watching my son play. What can I tell you? I got priorities. Lukaku!
Gab, your thoughts not on Ali's delivering of his Lukaku line, but
or Ali's son's general state of play.
If Lukaku does end up at Inter, good for him, good for Inter?
Well, right now we don't know who the next Inter manager is. People are taking it for granted that it's going to be Antonio Conte. I don't think we're quite there yet where we can say that. So if it's a guy who wants Lukaku, who can work for him, who can give him that kind of service, sure, it's a chance to relaunch his career. I'm not sure Inter, and a lot's going to depend on the price, but Lukaku doesn't come cheap. He has an enormous salary at Manchester United. It would obviously signal the end of Mauro Icardi, when a lot of people might be fine with that, but then you got to make sure that you can sell him well and get some money back. So I don't know. This Lukaku thing seems to be like a lot of talk, a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff from the man who, despite being suspended right now, is still the great puppet master, one of the great puppet masters. He's the same guy who's moving Matthijs de Ligt around. He's moving Romelu Lukaku around. He'd move Paul Pogba around if he could. That man, of course, is Mino Raiola.
Yes.
Mino Raiola.
Big Mino. We love him, don't we? He is suspended. Well, I don't know. Someone does.
Okay.
Clearly not the authorities.
When Gab said
he's suspended.
Well, because you move pieces very well, Shaq. And people don't know where you are, but you
burning into the side of my head over here.
You got things going on in different places. You're like more like a Lego master.
What's your question, John?
If
build bridges everywhere.
Lukaku does move to Inter, surely Ali has to start commentating on Serie A for our ESPN
I would expect nothing less.
I'm volunteering you.
Does
I
that mean,
expect nothing less.
Look, does that mean that I have to hang out with Matteo Bonetti? Because if that's the case, then forget it.
You have to get to know each other well.
I'm out. I'll have Gab 1,000 times over Matteo Bonetti.
We will be concentrating on Italian matters tomorrow, as of course the